creating curiosity by asking better questions. This is Shed Talk. Tony McGrath revitalized Calgary's Grand Theatre as CEO. Tony actively contributes to startup advisory boards and mentors for future entrepreneurs, Canada and the Hosking School of Business. A devoted family man, vegan, and an advocate for sober living. Tony McGrath, thank you very much for coming on to Shed Talk today. It's an honor having you, here.
I'm delighted to be here. I don't get out into the suburbs of Calgary all that often. I live downtown, so it's like a road trip for me.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. So what was it like all of a sudden coming to Shed Talk and it's actually, you're in a shed?
Yeah, I kind of came round the back of the house and it looked like a sauna.
Yeah. Well, it's not quite as a sauna feeling right now. So, no, it's been really good.
Yeah.
So, Tony, you got to tell me about, I basically want to start off because we got to talk a little bit earlier before we got on air, is about sobriety.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. It's a topic that I've only really started talking about in business this last 2 or 3 years. I'm a member of a 12-step program that has an anonymity as a basic foundation of it. But I was born in Ireland and raised in England, and I started drinking around about 13, and that surrounded me for my whole life. And it turns out that my off switch doesn't work somehow genetically or chemically. So if I put a beer in my body, I have no ability to predict what's going to happen. So I might go home, or I might be naked on a ferry going to Holland or something. So that's a pretty common affliction for a lot of people in our world, but that's the best way to describe alcoholism.
So
go ahead, sorry.
Oh, sorry, because when did you realize that you were at that stage?
I realized first I had a challenge with alcohol about 21, and I went to see a friend of mine who took me to a meeting, and I didn't go back. I didn't see how that was going to help me, and I had a blossoming career in banking in front of me. I ended up coming to Canada with a HSBC group as a senior vice president on a 3-year executive exchange, and young family, house on the beach in White Rock, German sports car.
So you're making a lot of money.
Making a lot of money, flying business class, and really everything you would possibly want in life. But my drinking was accelerating, and it started to cause some problems for me. And I remember I went for an executive insurance health check, and I lied about my drinking. I cut it in half, basically. And the doc said, "You're drinking too much." And it was like, oh dear. Like the lie really wasn't helping me at this point. So I didn't end up under a bridge. I didn't end up in a homeless situation, but I ended up as a very hollow man. I had a hole in my soul that I just couldn't fill. And alcohol was my only answer. And it started causing me relational problems. It started causing me some work issues, not to the point where I was going to get fired, but I one day woke up and I'd had a bit of a bumpy ride over the last week or so and decided that I needed to do something about this. So I'm 41 years old at this point, and I went to a meeting, and almost 26 years later, I'm still sober, and it's been an incredible life journey. It's a spiritual program, and it has entirely changed my perspective and attitude towards life. And I don't have a problem with other people drinking around me. In fact, I welcome it. But my off switch, it doesn't work properly. So abstinence is.
Yeah. Well, what I really find really interesting in talking to fellow entrepreneurs and as we grow up, as we're entrepreneurs, we're with our buddies, we're drinking, we're having a great time, and we're growing our businesses. And when does it come the point that it's time for a change? Like when you decided to quit, and yes, you went through the 12 step.
Yeah.
Did you have to change your friends?
Yes, initially. And many of those friends have come back into my life, but it's if I sit in the barber's chair, eventually I'm going to get a haircut. So I had to change the places I went to and the people I hung out with. And as it happened, I had gone back to the UK at the end of my 3 years and decided that Canada was my home. So I took a package from HSBC and came back and went to work for a startup factoring business in Vancouver. So my life circumstances and my friend circle changed anyway. So I didn't find that part so challenging. My family were very far away. Right. Lots of my friends that I'd grown up with were far away. So establishing a new friend circle of people, of like-minded people, was not that difficult.
No, growing up, well, being in Great Britain, being there, and the culture of drinking, pubs everywhere, and I was just there and looking at it, and the culture there versus Canada, for pub wise.
Yeah, it's insane there at times. Like you know, the nightlife was insane. I loved drinking. I loved every aspect of it. You know, I loved the taste. I loved the effect. I loved what it did for me until it didn't. You know, you reach a point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I think, you know, lots of entrepreneurs lean on addictive processes that take them out of their current mindset, very often away from worry and stress. It can be drugs or sex or booze or workaholism. There's many ways of changing your mindset at that time. So I think entrepreneurship in particular lends itself to addiction. You know, lots of professions say that, but entrepreneurship is quite a lonely journey. So.
It is definitely a lonely journey at the top.
It is.
Yeah. And when we start talking about the alcohol, so I haven't drank in 5 years, and I remember making that transitional point to my life as an entrepreneur, drinking every day, 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I think it was 3 o'clock every day, go for that social, 3 to 7, and really finding out, once I decided to do that one moment of instant quit, where does that come into play? What did you do it as a... find something else to fulfill that between 3 and 4?
Well, to a degree. I mean, I was involved very deeply with the 12-step program that I was in. And I threw myself into business at that point very, very heavily. So that was a new experience for me, because as a drinker, you spend an awful lot of time hungover or drinking or socializing. But when you've got a clear mind, your approach to business gets distinctly different. And I think sobriety is like a growing up process. You know, you become a real adult in business. And I found that I spent more time with quality individuals in business, and I developed an appetite for learning at that point and learning new businesses, which has held me in good stead for the following quarter of a century. There's nothing I'm scared of now. And my view is, with my journey with sobriety, when you've been to the gates of hell, like, really there's nothing to scare you. You know, and alcohol can take you there in your mind very easily. You may not be under a bridge, but you can be very much a broken man inside or a broken woman inside with addiction in your life, I think. So. Yeah.
And finding out that you truly have to love yourself, because once you get out of that, you got to love yourself, because then all of a sudden anything is possible to go to the next level.
Absolutely.
And as an entrepreneur, when you're in that, what was the greatest business you started? Or in ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I've partnered my wife a great deal in business. So the one that was the most fun was we built a federally approved national title insurance company. But title insurance is a very boutique product in the real estate market. And the only companies that were in that industry were large American conglomerates out of Houston and New York. There was no Canadian title insurer. And lawyers in the main in Canada didn't want the product.
And what is a title insurance?
So title insurance is a weird insurance that insures you for everything that happened before the date of insurance. Whereas normally insurance insures you for everything that happens after the date. So title insurance covers the four corners of the title of your property. So things like the boundary disputes, people stealing your title, title issues with a neighbour, those kind of things. And most Canadian lenders now mandate it. So there was basically three of us decided that we were going to take on the Americans. And most of these companies are like $8 billion in revenue. They're huge. So we gathered a group of investors who wanted to take the project on, but only in BC, and we wanted it national. So we persuaded them that it's as easy to build national as it is a cookie shop in BC, basically. Right. So literally that's almost impossible after 2008 with the collapse of the markets and incredible regulation. And I think the exciting part of that was we were stealth right up to the day we launched. Nobody knew we were coming. We ourselves did all the pitching, built the pitch deck, went to New York, London, Bay Street, pitched ourselves with some help from some consultants. We ran the thing bootstrapped on our credit cards. We had to lend our partner a pair of shoes to go to a pitch in Toronto on Bay Street. So we genuinely built this from a business plan on the back of a cigarette packet, basically. So we even submitted our business plan to Queen's Business School, one of the best business plans that they'd ever set their eyes on at that particular time. So we had never built a major company since then. So, before that, never. Like, we'd all done little bits and pieces, and we came from entrepreneurial backgrounds, and it looked impossible on paper. But we actually got the thing over the line, despite losing all our investors with the collapse of the markets. They all took to the hills, and we carried on. And I remember being at home with my wife, and we were in bed together, lying awake, wondering how we were going to get through. And we many times we said, "Do you think we can get through this? Can we survive this?" And we were side gigging. I was selling technology that competed with OpenTable, and she was Marcy's an extremely good lawyer, and she was teaching a paralegal course, and so we were side gigging to get this over the line, and it was the most incredible experience. And on the day we launched, our main competitor, called a sales meeting in New York to discuss where the hell we came from. And that was so gratifying because we used to work for that company. So it was a real lesson in go big or go home. You know, like I meet lots of entrepreneurs and they so underestimate what they're capable of, and they so underestimate the scale that they can build a company at, and they stay small scale, and they remain that way always. And literally, we learned you can build one cookie store, or you can build a national chain of cookie stores. Mm-hmm. It's just as hard to do both. It's
kind of like if you can sell one, you can sell 1,000.
Absolutely.
And then getting in there.
Yeah.
So that's an awesome story. But the question, and which is great.
Yeah.
Now, the greatest thrill that you had there was all of a sudden when your competitors all of a sudden are going, who's this guy in the back? Because Microsoft back in the day, and they're wondering, when we call it, who's your ghost?
Yeah.
Which ghost? Who's going to come in? That feeling of, we're here.
It's elation, and I remember when we got purchased in the end by an American company who weren't in our industry. And I remember our broker calling us and saying, you can go buy a yacht now. And that wasn't anything we wanted. It was like, why are you saying that to us? And my wife's again in a hyper growth business in the tech industry now. She's a chief of staff and legal counsel, and she's going through the same kind of experience, but they're much further ahead than we were. So they're right at the forefront of artificial intelligence right now. Mm-hmm. So super exciting, and everything she learned building that insurance business, I know is paying back in spades right now, because they're going global, never mind national. So they just struck a deal just recently. It was announced publicly with Michael Dell at Dell Computers. Like, he announced it. So that tells you the scale of this thing that's going on. So like she slotted into this company with 3 other entrepreneurs, didn't bat an eyelid, because there's nothing to fear anymore. Right. So, there's no, oh my God, this is just a dream. No, actually, we can make this dream happen, I think. So
when you basically, so you're building the dream together, but you sold the business.
Yeah.
So did you have, when you started it first selling, okay, we're going to build it to sell, or is it build it to grow?
I don't think we knew.
Yeah.
The idea came up, and we talked to some investors, and they badly wanted to do it. I don't think in that era of entrepreneurship you thought about anything except building a business. Yeah. So I don't think we really thought that strategy through. Right. And we reached a point where financially our backs were against the wall a little bit, and we sold at that point. And I don't think that was the right thing to do.
And that was just because you guys were backs were against the wall, and you got to get a cash flow injection.
Yeah,
so
we needed the backing of a A1 rated insurer behind us at that point, and they were it.
So would you, if you didn't have that problem, do you think you would have kept it and still grown it?
I think so. I think it would be inevitable with that kind of company that you're going to get purchased.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because from my experience, when I talk to people about their businesses, right, and they use this saying all the time, you know what, build your business so you can sell it. You got to make sure you do this. And it's like, it's one of those things like, you build it, they will come. And it's like, no. You've basically just go with it. And if it comes later on, like you're going to sell it or whatever, don't build it to sell it. It will come. The plan of attack, you have to concentrate on that.
One thing that was very dear to us was building a life for our staff. And all of our underwriters who worked from home across Canada, and this is 20 years ago, we were virtual and ahead of the time. Our underwriters were in the main women who had been in the workforce and now had families. But no insurer would hire them full-time because they couldn't go into the office. And virtual was almost unheard of. And we developed a platform where they could underwrite a policy while they were in Costco, literally on their smartphone at that time.
Well, that's great. It's like back then. Wow.
Yeah. So we one of our real values was that we wanted to create a wealthy life for the people that work for us. And an awful lot of these people weren't given those kind of opportunities. And the equality for women in the workplace, even at that time, really was very poor. So we gave them opportunities to move into management and executive roles that a large company wouldn't have done. And many of them have gone on to do amazing things since then. And a couple of them work with my wife now still. So that was very important to us. So I think, to answer your question a little more honestly, we had in our mind to build a bit of a legacy business. But there's always the sale at the back of your mind, and all of our staff would have had a part of that, I think. So
you think of COVID and where everybody is working from home, and then all of a sudden you've already done that 20 years. Like
we've been doing it for decades before, and our staff have been doing it for decades.
And how did you build culture with that? Because you're obviously not in the same. They talk about culture as in, okay, here's our office, here it is, let's build culture. But all of a sudden everybody's all over the place, and being able to have employees engaged in culture. How was that?
Great leaders don't have a problem with that, because they're one of their primary skills is great communication. So it doesn't matter whether you're speaking in the office or on Zoom. You've got to make the effort to make sure that your communication is authentic. And that meant that us as leaders, we would have to get on an airplane and go visit them.
And you didn't have Zoom back then. I'm trying to think when Zoom was coming, because during that time, you're not even face to face.
No, we were just by phone at that point. And there were a couple of platforms where we could do video, but it was difficult. So, you've got to remember, as a leader, culture just doesn't happen. If you allow it to grow on its own, it isn't normally a great culture. So you've got to spend a lot of time talking to your people one-on-one, and you do have to make the effort to go visit them. And I see a lot of leaders complaining about their culture right now, but you don't see them getting on a plane to visit the guy in Newfoundland and taking him to dinner or his family, and that's your job.
What a big miss, because I see a lot of companies right now, and I see them exactly, and they talk about, they see this speaker, okay, here's your culture, but then all of a sudden here's the baseline, and all of a sudden here it is. Just go see us.
Yeah, like I was just out in Montreal and Toronto with my wife with my job, and she came along. She went to visit her staff in Montreal and her staff in Toronto. They went for dinner and drinks and had a chance to one-on-one for coffee. You quite often don't get that with a poor leader, even in the office. Yeah. They don't make the effort to communicate or sit down with the people and, shoot the breeze a little and like, how's it going and how's the family? You can't expect a culture to grow in that way. So I don't think it's people complaining about the Zoom culture. I think it's just poor leadership, to be honest.
Then there's a lot of poor leadership out there, because everybody's, and you're hearing them talk about it. People are leaving their companies because of a pen. Someone sends a pen for an extra $100. Here you go. Yeah. They haven't even met the owner yet, that was it.
Yeah, I think our leaders have gotten a little lazy during COVID, and I run into a lot of really good leaders, and an awful lot of them seem to be women. And women seem to have a gift of communication that's authentic and empathetic. And I think us male leaders have a lot to learn from that.
My wife's in business with me, and 100% there. That's a big learning curve for myself.
Yeah. And my best sales and business developers over the decades, in the main, have been women.
Wow.
Because they just seem to naturally be able to create a relaxation with a client or a member of staff. It's natural. There's no pressure.
So let's fast forward to today. Okay. So culture's changed. COVID has come. It's hit. Now, the born of the woke crowd.
Yeah.
Do you see anything that's go back then to now, how things have changed?
It's interesting, because before COVID, I got involved with the Grand Theatre in Calgary. It's an iconic 1912 vaudeville theatre, and I'd done some strategy work for the board, and they had just let their two male leaders go who couldn't get on, and the place was in crisis. So they asked me if I would look after it for a few weeks. So I sat in the theatre, and one Sunday, and I thought, well, shit, why don't I do this? So I've never been in the arts. I've never run a theatre. I've never managed a heritage building in my entire life. But as an entrepreneur, what better challenge could be in front of me? It's been an integral part of Calgary since 1912. Like, we recruited our soldiers in there to go to the First World War, the trenches. So the history was incredible. Like, Fred Astaire danced in there. The Marx Brothers had performed in there. Paul Robeson, and the place was going to close. So I took it on, and I put together a young new team in there and rebuilt it. And so I worked in the arts for about 3 years, where you would think the current wokeness would be at its most significant. I have found it a lot worse in business. In the arts, I found it was actually authentic. That inclusivity there was very important in a creative sphere, because a lot of our artistic establishments had been quite white and liberal. And one of our challenges was to bring back diversity in its truest form into the creative space and in our audiences. It wasn't very often you would get a guy who's Sikh coming from Marlborough to come and see a show in the Grand. Just didn't happen. So there's an economic part of that as well, in that you want to expand your audience and ticket sales. when I have re-entered the business world, I have found this culture now of I don't like the word woke particularly, but there's this fake environment of speaking publicly about diversity and equality and reconciliation when they actually don't really mean it. So I remember back in the 70s when we were talking about female equality in the business place, and the board would sit around and they say, we need to get a woman on the board. So they would take a safe option, and how about Betty in human resources? She's fairly harmless. That's what they would do. It's that kind of wokeness now that really irritates me. It's not the arts where they seem to be targeted an awful lot by the press for their wokeness. But I believe the real problems in our business world where there's this feeling that you have to be somehow. So we have to talk about it, and we have to publish these policies. In the Grand, we did not have an inclusivity or diversity policy. We had a welcome policy. You are safe here. You are welcome here. We don't care where you come from or what religion you practice. We literally don't care. You're welcome here. And I'd love to see that extended into our business world. You're welcome here. We want your skills. We want your opinions. We want your views. And that has to be genuine from the heart. And I think they're doing it because they feel they have to.
As an entrepreneur, and I see it in businesses that I own, it becomes really hard. And from my experience is that all of a sudden, are we actually hiring the right person, or do we have to go down this line over here because I'm not taking the best person that could be? And we hope that we do, and then it just becomes trial and error. We have to watch what we say, and we're going, how do we grow as a society and as a business? So it's been really a big challenge. But
I get that, and I think for me, the change. I grew up in a very multicultural environment. I grew up in Birmingham, in England, which has been multicultural since the war. So but I had to remove in the hiring process certain judgments. So if I heard an accent, for instance, or an education in India, or an education in the West Indies or Bangladesh, I had internal judgments that happened that wasn't as good as. And what I've had to do is slow down the hiring process, get rid of the interview completely, and go and take the prospective employee for a walk and chat about their family and their background. And some of the incredible stories that come out of that really start to make you think, I've got a remarkable employee here. Now, they may not fit all 10 boxes, but they sure as hell fit 7 of them, and the other 3 they can learn. And so it's really opening your mind a little bit. And that I think that really helps when you're hiring in a very multicultural way, because you can miss so many incredible opportunities of awesome employees because you've got these judgments that you've grown up with that there are internal biases that you sometimes don't even know are there. And I think even if you look at this pure hard dollars and cents, it makes total sense to open your mind up to hiring employees that you may not have hired in the past. And that might take a little work. But you're not doing it to be diverse. You're doing it because of the diversity of the skill set and the attitudes and the experiences that you're bringing in. It's got nothing to do with skin color or where you're from or your religion. So it's diversity of skill and experience, I think. So that's important, I think, to do that.
You've hit it right on the head. Now that is a great leader. And listening to exactly what you're talking about, building great culture, listening to what they actually have to say and build off of that. And how many people forget about that? Like, Absolutely. They don't do it.
I think Folk Built, we talked about Morgan and Folk Built, and my friend Gina Thornton is the CFO over there. And they have built a remarkable culture because they found it difficult to hire employees. They're out in the boonies. It's not easy to get there. She told me a story of a guy from, I think he was from India, who had an interview with them, and the buses don't even go out there. And he drove his moped in the snow to get out there for the interview. Who would not want to hire that guy?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't? That's like our old stories of, when I was young, I used to walk uphill in the snow to school with no shoes on.
And both
that
ways.
guy almost pretty much, that guy did that because he wanted the job so badly.
Yeah. And I find that guys, that's exactly the guys that all of a sudden reach out. How many people are writing resumes and they use AI, they get that all set up, and the next thing you know, they sent it out. Oh, I sent out 1,000 emails. Did you actually look up who the directors are, who's the owner, what they're about, what they like? Yeah. Did you actually do anything? And how often are you calling them in an interview to go after the kid? That guy that goes through the snow, he's the first guy we're hiring.
Totally. So I think if you don't like woke, then change it.
Yeah. No, that is great.
I think there's too much fake diversity out there, like policies, and you feel you have to. And I do believe that we have to give opportunities to people that were excluded in decades gone by. And my parents are Irish. When they moved to England, neither of them had a high school education. There used to be signs, and I can't say the word on this show, but there was no dogs, no ends, no Irish.
Oh, right.
And they would be on workplaces, and they would be on rental apartments over in England. So, they had to carve out their own opportunities. And I think as leaders, we have to create an environment where those opportunities are open to everybody.
You are totally right. Well, you know what, Tony, thank you very much for your time on Shed Talk.
Yeah, I loved it. You're a great host.
Thank you very much. We're going to get back together another time because I want to talk to you in the future.
Yeah.
Is going to be talking about your public speaking.
Okay. I'd like to do that. Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now you know. Shed Talk.